Hello students, UG Computer Applications 3rd semester subject Programming with C and C++. Under the subject, today I am going to deal with the Unit 3 Basics of C language. C language, before going to deal with the subject, whatever that may be, suppose if you wanted to learn English language, first what we will learn? We will learn the alphabets of English. Then we will go with the words. Then we will go with the sentences. In the same way, when we are learning any programming language means, first we should know the importance of when it has been evolved and what is the purpose of that programming language, for what purpose we are learning that language, all the good things and all whatever the related things of that programming language that we have to understand first. Then as a first step of learning this subject, we have to learn the alphabets that are there in that programming language. So first we are learning about, in the process of learning the alphabets, we are first identifying the C tokens. In that, first C languages uses the simple English language itself, means English language both uppercase letters A to Z and lowercase letters A to Z, C language also uses. Apart from this, C language also uses the digits 0 to 9, A to Z letters, capital and small, digits 0 to 9. Among the apart all these, it has also uses some special characters as building blocks to form the basic C language program. So these are called as program elements of C. Apart from these characters, C also uses identifiers. C character set uses the identifiers. What do you mean by an identifier? Identifier is used to identify a particular thing. How you will be identified? With your name. How myself will be identified? With my name. Similarly, to identify any person or a thing, it needs to have a particular name. Similarly, whatever the variables that we are using in the C programming language should be identified with some name. So we have to give some name to that number, character or else a variable. But in order to give some name to that variable, we need to follow some rules. Those rules are, an identifier should start either with a letter or with an underscore. It should not start with a digit. Either it should start with either capital letters or with the small letters, whatever it may be the letters. If not, it can start with a underscore, but it should not start with any digits or else any white spaces, means any empty spaces. Okay. So generally the lowercase letters are used for the C variables. It is not mandatory to use the lowercase letters for the variables, but it is a good practice of using the lowercase letters for the variables, and for the function names also we will use the lowercase letters. As a practice, it is a good practice. See how we will name as a Hyderabad, H will be a capital thing. It's not compulsory to write H as a capital letter, but it's a respect that we are giving to the Hyderabad, that it should start with any city name or else person name will be started with it's a good practice of identifying the things. So similarly, it's a good practice of using some specified rules to identify particular variables or function or whatever it is. These are not mandatory, but we should follow. If you follow that, this is a good way of writing a programming language. And one more most important thing that we have to remember here is, C is a case sensitive language. It means it can sense the cases, means it can sense uppercase letter and it can sense lowercase letter. Suppose uppercase A is, if you write an uppercase A, it will not read that as a lowercase a. It will show the difference between uppercase A to lowercase a. If you write HYD, H capital, it will differentiate that with small HYD, means case will be sensitized. So, you should be very cautious enough while writing any keyword or else any identifier, any name. You should use the same old cases that you are using, that you have initialized with. So, you should be very cautious enough while writing the identifiers. You should keep it in mind that it is case sensitive, it will sense the case of letters. Identifier is a name that the user can give to identify a particular variable, but C itself also can reserve some of the words as the keywords while writing C programming language. The names which has been already reserved by the C in order to write that programming language are called as reserved words. So, at the beginning of writing the C programming language, the authors will reserve some of the words for the C, means those words will have a particular meaning in that C programming language. They should not be used as an identifier by a user. So, if a user wanted to give a particular name to a variable, he should avoid using the reserved words which are already reserved by the C. The person should not use the reserved word which are already used by the C. Then what is the difference between reserved words and keywords? Suppose if C has reserved some 32 reserved words while writing that programming language, but it is not mandatory to use all those 32 words in a single first phase of writing the C programming language. It will reserve those words, maybe it will use those words in the latter subsequent modifications of that programming language. So, whatever the reserved words that the C currently is using are called as keywords. They are called as keywords, means keywords are nothing but the reserved words which are currently being used by C language. So, you should know what are the keywords that a C is being used. They are being listed here. See, auto, double, int, struct, break, else, long, switch, case, e-number, register, type definition, character, for, if, do, static, while, etc. You should know all these keywords. Though you use or don't use, you should know all these keywords, because in order to not to name these keywords to your identifier names. It will give you an error if you use these keywords as your identifier names. So, next is the variable. What is a variable? Variable, the name itself says it varies, it changes. So, variable is one of the identifier which is used to represent a data item, specific data types within the block of a program. Data type is, it's a storage unit, it's a storage type. Either it may be the integer, or it may be the floating point, or it may be the character type. These are the data types. These data types should be named with a variable name. They are called as variables. Each and every variable should have its own name. They are called as the variable identifiers. The value assigned to a variable will be, first you have to assign some value to a variable. It can later on undergo changes or modifications as long as the program execution continues. So, variable name will be changed from the beginning to till the end. Whatever the resultant answer that you get till the end of this programming language will be till the end of that program will be the final value of that variable. A variable declaration can be done in a very simple way. There are n number of ways of representing a variable. Here you see, we can represent a variable, data type variables that we have already told. Data types are of integer, floating point variables, character names, like that. See, we have declared a variable like int a. So, the variable that we declared here is a. The name of the variable is a. A is of type integer data type. A is a variable of integer data type. In that way we can represent. and we can also initialize the variable at the time of declaration also. See, we have written int b is equal to 20, means we have declared b as an integer variable and we have assigned the value to the b as 20. So, b is a variable which is storing the value 20 at its place. Either you can simply initialize or you can initialize with some value. Similarly, floating point is the fractional integer values, fractional points. Float root 1, root 2 is equal to 1.234. So, this is how that we can represent floating point. In the same way, for the floating points also, either you can simply initialize the floating point variable or you can initialize a variable and assign some value to the floating point variable, and more than one variable, more than one integer or floating point variable can be initialized at a time in a single statement. See, here we have written int a comma b is equal to 20 comma c. Instead of writing that in a single statement, we can also write int a semicolon int b is equal to 20 semicolon int c. So, in order to avoid these 3 lines of statements, we have written in a single line int a comma b is equal to 20 comma c, means we have separated the integer variable declaration with commas. In the same way, we can also separate floating point representation, character representation with commas, but the delimiter of a statement is again a semicolon. Data types. Data types is one of the most important points to be remembered in any programming language, as the data types are segregated into 3 broad categories. The first type is integer data type, integer quantity that we can store in that kind of data. What I told, data type is a storage spaces. So, if you declare any variable as integer data type, that it can store 2 or 4 bytes of data, 2 or 4 bytes of data. If you use 2 or 4 bytes of, what does it mean? 2 bytes means 16 bits, 4 bytes means 32 bits. So, 32 bits of data that you can store. So, 32 bits means 2 to the power 6, 2 to the power 8, sorry, so minus 2 to the power 8 to 2 to the power 8 minus 1 number of values that you can store in an integer. So, more than 3,27,676 values that we can store in a integer variable. So, generally we go, in general we will use integer data type only. Suppose if you wanted to declare a very small integer value, another category of representing an integer data type is short. Short can store only 2 bytes of data. Short can store only 2 bytes of data, that is 16 bits of data can only be accommodated in a short variable. And long is a more than integer, more than short value that we wanted to keep, because of if you wanted to read with the light years and all, for the scientific purpose you use this long data types. But in general, for our programming languages, we will use integer data type as a moderate integer data type variable. Apart from that, we can also use unsigned integer. Unsigned integer is an integer data type where the sign is not been indicated. For whatever it may be the value that we write in any programming languages, generally they will be the signed values. Means if you wanted to see it should the programming language should differentiate +5 with the -5. See, in general terms, if we say 5 means, that is implied like it is +5, but in programming language we have to express 5 as +5. If you want to represent -5, you have to mention -5. If you want to represent +5, you have to mention +5. So, sign representation is very much mandatory in any programming language. Then where this sign will be placed? This sign will be placed in the higher order position of the any number. Higher order position bit is nothing but the highest bit position. Suppose if you take 0 to 8 bits, means 8th position is a higher order bit. So, there that bit will be reserved for the sign, either for the plus or for the minus. If it is the plus sign, higher order bit will be indicated with 0. If it is a minus, higher order bit will be indicated with the 1. If it is higher order bit is 1, we can directly imply that it is a negative number. So, all the data types that we have discussed till now is the signed data types. Sometimes it is not required to represent signed integers. Suppose if you want to measure the distances from here to some other place which is 1 kilometer distance from you. How you will tell? It is 1000 meters away from me, like that you will tell, but you will not say minus 1000 kilometers distance. So, in those cases sign is not required. For that you will use unsigned integers. So, unsigned integer category is also there. There also we can use either 2 or 4 bytes of data. So, these are the integer family data types, and the next one is character family data types. So, here we will use only 1 byte to represent the character. 1 byte means 8 bits. So, minus 128 to plus 127. So, minus 2 to the power 8 to 2 to the power 8 minus 1. So, these many characters, these many spaces were reserved to represent the character. And the next is floating point. Floating point is to represent the fraction point of numbers. Like integers, floating point of numbers also needs 4 bytes of data to represent the floating point numbers. And next is, in the floating point family we have another data type, that is double. Double is used for the higher precision values. More values if you want to represent after dot, then you go with the double values, that is nothing but that can be represented with 8 bytes of the data. So, most commonly used integer family data type is int, most commonly used floating point family data type is float. In the character data type family we have only one data type, that it is char. Next is the constants. Constants are also the tokens of C. We have already discussed identifiers, we have already discussed data types. Now, the term constants. Constants are the fixed variables which cannot be altered throughout your program. Either those characters, constants can be either they may be integers or they may be floating points or they may be characters or strings. Whatever it may be the constants, once if it is declared, they are constant, they cannot be altered. So, there are several different kinds of integer and floating point constants, and these integer and floating point constants represents numbers which are generally referred to as numeric constants. See, to represent the constants, characters or integers or floating point characters. And the next topic is escape sequences. What do you mean by escape? Escape is nothing but escaping the general meaning of a character or a word. See, it will be, suppose if you take any character, it has its own English meaning. So, if you wanted to escape those general meaning, it should be identified to the compiler by giving one backslash. As soon as the compiler sees that backslash, it will identify the next character coming after this backslash will be an escape number. So, I should not read its general meaning, it is having its own specified meaning in the C programming language, and I should make use of that specified meaning only. I should not take its general meaning, like that it will interpret. So, the characters below this ASCII value 32 are non-printable control characters. These are called as escape characters. ASCII is nothing but the standard code, American Standard Code for Information Interchange. So, whatever the character sets, whatever the data types that we use will be in the ASCII code character data type in C language. If a string contains any of these values, including the double quotes, apostrophe, question mark or backslash, it should be preceded by a backslash to escape it from the representation, which is known as an escape sequence. An escape sequence always begins with a backslash and is followed by one or more special characters. For example, line feed is represented with backslash /n. If you write simple n, what it will read? It will read that it has a alphabet N only. N is having not special, it does not have any special meaning in C. Suppose if you write that with the backslash N, so backslash N is having the meaning of new line. So if a compiler encounters backslash N, it will take the cursor to the next line. It will stop working in that particular line. It will immediately jump to the next line as soon as it sees the backslash N. So the general meaning of N has been changed to new line with the help of this backslash. Such kind of escape sequences always represent with a single character only. Even though they are written in terms of 2 or more characters, they will in general represent with a single characters. Some of the examples of these escape characters are /t. /t, as soon as it sees the /t, means T is having no meaning in the general English alphabet. T is T itself. Whereas if you write /t, the T is having the special meaning like a tab. So if a compiler encounters /t, it will take you one tab. It will move to the one tab forward. And /a, /b, /r, all these are the examples of your escape sequences. Escape sequences are having its own ASCII values which are of below 32. /t horizontal tab, /v vertical tab, /n new line, /f form feed, /r carriage return, /double quotes is a double quote, /apostrophe is its own meaning. Suppose if you want to display it in double quotes, you have to write double quotes, escape sequence, double quote, and hello, double quotes, again escape sequence, double quotes. This is how you have to write the escape sequences. The next are operators. Operators and operands. What do you mean by an operator? A variable which undergoes operation is nothing but an operator. Operand. What are the different kinds of operators that we have? Binary operators, unary operators, ternary operators. An operator which contains only a single operand, only if the operator works on a single operand, +5, +i, ++i, means I is a single operand. On that only the operator is working. They are called as unary operators, unary, single operand operators. And the generally that we use the operators are binary operators, a plus b. Plus is the operator, a and b are the operands. So plus operator is working on 2 operands, a and b. So this is called as binary operator. And apart from unary and binary, we have another operator that is called as ternary operator. Ternary operator is used in place of if-else statement. If-else statement. Ternary operator is an operator which works on 3 operands. If the condition, if A colon do this, if the condition is true, then the next operator will work. Otherwise, comma, another operator will work. That is the ternary operator function. So among all these operators, we have different variations among all these operators. They are arithmetic operators. We have discussed now arithmetic operators only. Apart from these arithmetic operators, we have assignment operators, relational operators, logical operators, conditional operators, bitwise operators. Relational operators are those operators where it will verify the relations, lesser than, A lesser than B, B lesser than C, greater than, lesser than or equal to, double equal to. These are the relational operators. And the logical operators are nothing but it will give you true or false, yes or no condition it will give. Bitwise operators are nothing but they will work on individual bits of the variable. Means either they will work on zeros and ones, not on the entire. 4 plus 5 means it is an arithmetic operator. Suppose if you convert 4 into binary and 3 into binary, 1 0 1 0, 0 1 1 1. These are nothing but the, if you operate on single bits, zeros and ones, they are called as bitwise operators. Again these output will be in bitwise values only. See the examples. Plus is used where it will give you the remainder. Suppose 10 modulus 2. What does it mean? It will give you 0. So, you should know the difference between divides and the modulus. Divides will give you the coefficient, whereas modulus will give you the remainder. Another ones are increment and decrement operators. I told you already, these are the unary operators. You can see the example A plus plus, A minus minus. So, that is working on a single operator. So, they are called as, that is why they are called as unary operators. These are the examples for the arithmetic operators, right. So, next, input output character set. Input output character C is having the rich input output character functions. For the input character function, we have get character function, or else we can hash include stdio, we can take scanf function also to take the input from the outside, or else if you want to scan or if you want to read a single character, you can take get char. So, single character input, that it is called as get char. The single character output is nothing but put char. Either you can put char function, or you can use printf function. Printf function, which is also used for the output function. So, these are the rich set of characters or else identifiers, input output functions, all these that we have discussed for the C language with this rich set of characters, elements, and the C has been ruling the world till today.